Welcome to another Verasys video. My name is Rob Snowart, and today I'm going to cover TECs and cover TECs and Verasys as they come in and how to set them up and some of the features of a TEC. So I have my demo panel in front of me, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to log in. So on this demo panel, I have a zone coordinator with several zones. I also have a IOM, and so I'm going to work with the TEC on the demo panel. My TEC's default address is 4, so once I plug it in, it'll appear in the list, and then we can start to mess around with it. So let me plug it in. So while we're waiting for it to power up, the TEC controller is used for third-party single zone units. So it can handle 2 heat, 2 cool, the single zone unit. It can also control the economizer, and it can also control a heat pump. So the same stat can control quite a few different configurations of your unit. So its default address is 4. So it will come up on the system bus, and it wires to the system bus. So system bus addresses are right now I have a system bus address of 6, and I have a system bus address of 7. Notice that there's some other addresses here that are not solid blue. They're white. Those are addresses that are of controllers that are underneath the zone coordinator. So these controllers here wire to the zone bus of this zone coordinator. So my TEC has come in, and like I said, the address is 4 by default. Now, if there was another address 4 on this bus, that TEC would not have communicated to Verasys. The TEC is designed such that if there's an address conflict when it powers up, not to start talking. So that way you're not knocking something offline. So if I had an address conflict, we wouldn't have seen, let's say I addressed it to 6. It wouldn't have come up. I would have needed to manually go to the thermostat and adjust it through the menu. So, but it did come up at 4. So once I click on this, I will be able to see the menus within the TEC. The same menu structure here on the left is almost identical to what you have when you walk up to the TEC3000. The differences are you will not see commissioning menu here. So that's the one difference, is you will not see the commissioning menu. Why? Well, we really don't want somebody virtually to commission it. So we want them to be at the stat so they can hear the equipment come on and react accordingly. So commissioning is at the local stat, not through the network. Once I did click it on, or click and get in to the menu, notice that the circle of comfort came up, and that is only on the staged equipment model, which will control units, those units that I told you. We also have some fan coil models that will just show a list of points. So if you have a TEC3000 that's a fan coil unit model, you would not get the circle of comfort. The schedule, or let me show you some of the features. Each TEC has some built-in alarms. So the alarming, see if there's any, can be set up. So in this case, you've seen some past alarms where the zone temp got too hot. A board mismatch alarm is when you would have a fan coil unit version on, but this plugged into the back of a fan coil unit board. So at one time that's happened. It was a while ago. We've had a supply fan fault. We've had supply fan exceed runtime. Firmware mismatch, so wrong firmware or firmware version that may not have been supported was loaded into it. And we had economizer unavailable. So as you can see, this, since it is a demo panel, we put it into several different situations. So the alarm screen here we'll cover that. Overview essentially shows you a lot of the same things you can see in the circle of comfort, but through just regular text. Set points is where you would adjust your occupied cooling and heating set points, and you would also adjust your unoccupied cooling and heating set points, as well as your standby heating and standby set points. The schedule is where we can take and set the schedule. So in this case, there's already a schedule in here. This particular schedule can be schedule synced. So let's go do that right now while we're looking at the schedule. Let's add in a schedule sync, and we'll just do a test schedule. And we'll just make it something simple. So we'll say every day we want this to, first off, we want to make sure that we unoccupy it at midnight of every day. Reason why we do this is we want to make sure that at midnight we are in the mode we want to be in. It does not carry over. So at 8 a.m. we will want to go occupied. And notice that I'm clicking here on the middle section to bring up a little bit quicker menu to select what it is I want versus doing up-down arrows. So we'll say every day, Monday through Friday, we'll go 8 a.m. and then at 5 p.m. So 5 p.m. would be 1700. Okay, yes, 5 p.m. is 1700. And Monday through Friday. Now we have our schedule sync schedule. Now we just have to select the TEC that we want to send it to. And when I hit save, it will take this schedule that we just did and it will send it to the TEC. So let's take a look at our schedule again. Notice it is different. So it's exactly what we had schedule synced. The schedule sync feature is a nice feature when you have many pieces of equipment that you want to schedule and control them all off one schedule. The schedule is local, so what that means is it's not residing in the smart building hub, that the TEC will turn on and off regardless of trunk at those times. So the schedule is local. And really kind of nice, because if your trunk was down, then obviously you wouldn't get the schedule commands to come through at the various times. Other parts of this menu underneath schedule is setting schedule options. So we have the ability to do an optimal start. What that optimal start means is, yes, we have that schedule to come on at 8 o'clock, but it will over time learn that, hey, it takes about this amount of time to bring it from the temperature that we're at to the occupied set points. So it'll turn on a little bit early. Temporary occupancy duration is also set here. What that means is if I am unoccupied and someone was to walk up to the stat and tap the screen, it would turn on for temporary occupancy and it would stay on for 120 minutes. If I was to set this value to 0, that turns off temporary occupancy, but it's a nice feature to have. Motion sensor timeout would be if we had a motion sensor model. So there are models that have motion sensors. The one that I have does not. But if I did, it meant that if I didn't sense motion for 15 minutes, I would go to my standby set points. So we saw our standby set points over here. Notice that the standby set points are just a little bit outside of what our regular occupied cooling and occupied heating set points are. So anyway, it gives you another set to widen your range. Other options are if you want through the front end to turn this on manually and keep it on as long as it is in override. This can keep it on for essentially forever, or keep it unoccupied essentially forever. And then finally, schedule source. In Verasys, you would always leave it in schedule. But if you are on a BAS network or have, like an FX or a Metasys, you could set this to external, and then the external point will start working versus the internal schedule. So through Verasys, you will leave it on schedule. Other menu items that you could set up is the display settings. Display settings means what does it show up on the display? How does the display work? So if you need to put a password on your system, in other words, the menu password, you could put this to yes and then set the password of what the person would have to enter in order to get into the functionality. Brightness setting is how bright is it when you tap on the screen. So you can set that brightness level if you would like. Enable backlit timeout. So after a couple of minutes of non-use, it will essentially gray itself out. You will still be able to see the temperature and see a few other things if you walk up close enough, but it will turn off the backlight. You'll put it down very, very dim. Language. We support 3 languages at this point: English, French, and Spanish. So this is where you would set what language you interface with. What units. So we support right now imperial and metric. The time and the date are, where what can be set at the thermostat itself or through Verasys. So let's see, today it is Eastern time zone, 11:54. I'm actually in Central time zone. So let's fix this. Through Verasys, it's very easy to set the time on anything that's on your system. So all that I have to do is I have to come to system settings. Through system settings, I can select what is the time zone. So I want to select Central time zone. Looks like that is the correct time and that is the correct date. I can also at this same point in time change all of Verasys from one unit set to another unit set. I'll leave it on Imperial. That's what I'm used to. So now when I press save and I go back to my TEC and I go back to my display settings, the Central Standard Time, 11:55. That is not right. But I did select Central Standard Time, 12 format. Now, why is that not correct? Let me try this one more time. So system settings. Let me just make sure that I actually did make a move there. 10:56 a.m. 10:56 is what's on my PC. Let's try this again. 10:56. So it appears that I need to make sure that I actually physically change that time in order for it to sync. So then you can set also the time format. So if you want to display in what's commonly military time, we can go ahead and we can display 24-hour versus 12-hour. Another thing I could have done would have been refresh the screen to make sure that I would have had my 10:56. So possibility it could have changed it the first time. And I can also set the date format. And then down below, show fan, show temp, all on home. Home screen means the screen that you walk up to and you touch. So if you want to show the temperature on there, you have the ability to say, I don't want to, or you can change and take off some of those buttons. So the fan button is the ability to override the fan. The temperature shows the temperature. Humidity is if you have a model that would have humidity, you have the ability or a built-in humidity sensor, it would show up on the home screen. And here you can turn it off if you don't want to show the humidity. Show off button on home. So there's an off button. Currently I have it set to no, to where you could turn off the thermostat. The hold button is the same button as what the set point looks like. And what hold means is you set a set point, and when you press hold, it means stay there forever. So if you want it to be 72 degrees even through unoccupied, it'll remain 72 degrees even through unoccupied. So it just holds the temp. A lot of times I like to turn that off so that way I am setting up and setting back. Show set point on home. That's showing the set point of what you can change. So if you don't want your users to change the set point, press that to no. Show alarms, which is the alarm bell. You can have that not appear or show appear. Occupied status and unit statuses are the text at the top of the stat or above the temperature, and that'll show what mode you're in, whether you're occupied, also show you whether you're cooling or heating, and then finally showing date and time down on the bottom. So a lot of flexibility with the display and showing what are in configuring how the display should work. Next section is the control setup. So this is where you would go to set up how it controls. So if you want your control just to be cooling only, set your control mode to cooling and it'll be cooling only. If you need to shut down your stat for an extended period of time, not come on. That's how you shut down your stat. Fan mode. There are different types of fan mode. On means on all the time. Auto means to cycle with heating or cooling. And smart means I want it to be on during occupied and cycle during unoccupied. Generally, smart is what most people like to choose, where the fan runs continuously during occupied and cycles during unoccupied. Max set point offset. Max set point offset is when you walk up to the stat and you press the up arrow or the down arrow, how much ability to change the set point are you going to have. So this will give the user the ability to move it up or down 2 degrees. Fan on delay and off delay are what it is when the fan kicks on, how much delay do you want? You can set that to 0 or you can set it up to 120 seconds. Same with off delay, kind of like a pump down, where you could run your fan a little bit longer after you've turned off your unit. So a lot of these particular settings, I can go through each one. There's quite a few of them. But what I would like to refer you to is the user's guide. The back of the user's guide is a appendix. Appendix B will go through each one of these and tell you what it means and how to use it and how to set it up. There's also a installation guide that will go through these configurations as well. So the install instructions will go through this as well. So rather than spend more time on this video going through each individual setup, I'll let you look at the user's guide. So one of the other things that I want to kind of cover is the plug and play nature of the TEC. So notice right now I'm at address 4. If I was to come to the network setup and now change this to address 5, which I can do because it doesn't have dip switches, you just essentially set your address via Verasys, or you can set it at the screen. So when I do that, what you'll see is that the address 4 went offline, and it immediately, or not immediately, but it will come up as address 5. So this is one of the unique characteristics of Verasys, is the plug-and-play nature of Verasys. Noticed we did change the schedule, so when it comes up, we'll go look at that schedule, and you'll notice that the schedule follows with it. Also, that follows with it will be any trends or other things that go along with the TEC. So the same menu structure, the everything that we've adjusted in that TEC just moves. For a normal building automation system, or I shouldn't say normal building automation system, but one that's got a supervisory controller, if you did something like this, you essentially would have to re-add all the points, or move the address manually through its configuration. You'd have to do some more work to make this come up and appear like what it once did. So Verasys is one of the first building automations that is plug and play, that you can put these addresses to anywhere between 4 to 127, and you just have to have an open address and it'll appear. So I'm going to go back to that schedule and just show you that that schedule is what we made it earlier. Other items to note on the TEC3000 is trend information. So I just turned on my demo panel a little bit ago, and so I've got 2 points of the trend. But as long as, well, we just plugged it in, is what when I just plugged it in. So we've got a couple of points that have come in trend, but as long as it stays up, it'll carry, I believe, 100 trend objects, and it'll be every 15 minutes. So over time, you'll have the ability to look at all the trend information on many of the points that affect that thermostat. So anyway, this concludes the presentation on the TEC3000 and how it sets up, and some of the neat features of the TEC3000. Thank you for watching this video. We hope that you watch another video in the Verasys video series. Thanks again. Bye-bye.